everyone, let's talk about the progressive woman, the progressive movement, and women's role in the progressive movement. So I have quite literally just finished reading over my notes and I want to get this out of the way. So let's start. The progressive movement as a whole would not be the same without the women's rights movement and all the effort they've put in. They quite literally went out of their way to cross over racial lines, gender lines, and everything in between to get the right to vote. This had multiple knock-on effects on the entire progressive movement. So, first and foremost, we have the lovely individuals who spent their time, money, and effort to get rid of child labor. This was from the women of the progressive movement who pushed this forward through a concept known as maternalism. This was amazing and groundbreaking overall. It redefined how things worked. The women's rights movement quite literally reshaped how the progressive movement functioned. It was the progressive movement's main engine of political change. It completely and utterly upended so many things and crafted the world that we live in today. Okay, so first and foremost, when we talk about the women's rights movement, we are not just referring to the movement to get the right to vote in the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment was a big thing. It was one of the keystones, but it was the women's rights movement which Wayne Wheeler also used to get prohibition passed. It was the women's rights movement which redefined how certain things work in our society. Great example. Child labor. I touched on this. It was the women's rights movement who completely outlawed the child labor and made it super restrictive in the US. It was also the women's rights movement who allowed for all the healthcare reforms to come to pass in such an efficient manner. The women's rights movement was a political beast in its heyday. It completely upended things, and it didn't care about race. It was women in general fighting for the right to vote. It was fighting for children. It was fighting for everything they could to make the world a better place. It was amazing. You could quite literally watch so in all my readings, you could see how many people were giving speeches, and the women's rights movement had so many people fighting for so many different causes and getting things passed. Like, they were utterly insane in their heyday. So, they reformed the healthcare system. They completely and utterly overhauled child labor. They destroyed an entire system which was holding them back, all for the sake of the right to vote. Yeah. And they did this all without the right to vote up until they got the 19th Amendment, and then they started going even harder. They passed prohibition before they had the right to vote. That is crazy. You had crazy ladies going around with axes destroying rum barrels. You had them convincing more people to fight harder for their nation in World War I and II. You had so many women sacrificing things just so we could win the war. You could see how they changed the progressive movement. The progressive movement is the women's rights movement. It is women in politics. It is everything under the sun that can be traced to the progressive movement, with probably thanks to the women's rights movement. They defined the progressive movement. They made up a huge support base for the early progressive movement and gave it the groundwork to actually push through to the modern era in its current form. They shaped the entire movement. It's amazing what you find out when you're researching late at night just to ensure that you have all your facts straight. Anywho, I'm going to go post this video now. Bye!